Hello everyone! Today we're going to be resuming our reading of the Tales of Beedle the Bard. Before we get started, I would like to just ask everyone to like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Without further ado, we're going to start part 4, and this story is called Babbitty Rabbitty and Her Cackling Stump. A long time ago, in a far-off land, there lived a foolish king who decided that he alone should have the power of magic. He therefore commanded the head of his army to form a brigade of witch hunters and issued them with a pack of ferocious blackhounds. At the same time, the king caused the proclamations to be read in every village and town across the land. Wanted by the king, an instructor in magic. No true witch or wizard dare volunteer for the post, for they were all in hiding from the brigade of witch hunters. However, a cunning charlatan with no magical power saw a chance of enriching himself and arrived at the palace, claiming to be a wizard of enormous skill. The charlatan performed a few simple tricks which convinced the foolish king of his magical powers and was immediately appointed Grand Sorcerer in Chief, the king's private magic master. Wow. Okay, so we've got a guard, what was this called? Ferocious Black Hound, which looks like Sirius Black. And we've got our king, who's got a serious hat on. Wow. Almost looks like a sultan. Okay. The charlatan bade the king give him a large sack of gold so that he might purchase wands and other magical necessities. He also requested several large rubies to be used in the casting of curative charms and a silver chalice or two for the storing and maturing of potions. All these things the foolish king supplied. Oh, so he's taking him for a ride. The charlatan stowed the treasure safely in his own house and returned to the palace grounds. He did not know that he was being watched by an old woman who lived in a hovel on the edge of the grounds. Her name was Babbitty, and she was the washerwoman who kept the palace linen soft, fragrant, and white. Peeping from behind her drying sheets, Babbitty saw the charlatan snap 2 twigs from one of the king's trees and disappear into the palace. Wow, he really couldn't have just chosen a tree from not the palace grounds. He had to choose one from in the palace grounds. The charlatan gave one of the twigs to the king and assured him that it was a wand of tremendous power. It will only work, however, said the charlatan, when you are worthy of it. Every morning, the charlatan and the foolish king walked out into the palace grounds, where they waved their wands and shouted nonsense at the sky. The charlatan was careful to perform more tricks. I wonder what these tricks are. So that the king remained convinced of his grand sorcerer's skill and of the power of the wands that had cost so much gold. One morning, as the charlatan and the foolish king were twirling their twigs and hopping in circles and chanting meaningless rhymes, a loud cackling reached the king's ears. Babbitty, the washerwoman, was watching the king and the charlatan from the window of her tiny cottage and was laughing so hard she soon sank out of sight, too weak to stand. I must look most undignified to make an old washerwoman laugh so, said the king. He ceased his hopping and twig twirling and frowned. I grow weary of practice. When shall I be ready to perform real spells in front of my subject sorcerer? The charlatan tried to soothe his pupil, assuring them that he would soon be capable of astonishing feats of magic. But Babbitty's cackling had stung the foolish king more than the charlatan knew. Tomorrow, said the king, we shall invite our court to watch their king perform magic. The charlatan saw that the time had come to take his treasure and flee. Alas, your majesty, it is impossible. I had forgotten to tell your majesty that I must set out on a long journey tomorrow. If you leave this palace without my permission, sorcerer, my brigade of witch hunters will hunt you down with their hounds. Tomorrow morning, You will assist me to perform magic for the benefit of my lords and ladies, and if anybody laughs at me, I shall have you beheaded. Uh-oh. The king stormed back to the palace, leaving the charlatan alone and afraid. So this is Babbitty. She kind of looks like a turnip, but she's cute. I like her. And this is obviously the king telling the charlatan that he cannot leave town. Okay. Not all his cunning could save him now, for he could not run away, nor could he help the king with magic that neither of them knew. Seeking a vent for his fear and his anger, the charlatan approached the window of Babbitty the washerwoman. Peering inside, he saw the little old lady sitting at her table, polishing a wand. In a corner behind her, the king's sheets were washing themselves in a wooden tub, kind of like Mrs. Weasley's. The charlatan understood at once that Babbitty was a true witch, and that she who had given him his awful problem could also solve it. "Crone!" roared the charlatan. "Your cackling has cost me dear. If you fail to help me, I shall denounce you as a witch, and it will be you who is torn apart by the king's hounds." Old Babbitty smiled at the charlatan and assured him that she would do everything in her power to help. The charlatan instructed her to conceal herself inside a bush while the king gave his magical display, and to perform the king's spells for him. Without his knowledge, Babbitty agreed to the plan, but asked one question. "What, sir, if the king attempts a spell Babbitty cannot perform?" The charlatan scoffed. "Your magic is more than equal to that fool's imagination," he assured her, and he retired to the castle, well pleased with his own cleverness. So, he looks like a bad person. Look at him. With all his gold necklaces. And this is Babbitty with her wand. Wonder what she does all day while her work is being done for her by magic. The following morning, all the lords and ladies of the kingdom assembled in the palace grounds. The king climbed onto a stage in front of them with the charlatan by his side. "I shall firstly make this lady's hat disappear," cried the king, pointed his twig at a noblewoman. From inside a bush nearby, Babbitty pointed her wand at the hat and caused it to vanish. Great was the astonishment and admiration of the crowd, and loud their applause for the jubilant king. "Next, I shall make that horse fly," cried the king, pointing his twig at his own steed. From inside the bush, Babbitty pointed her wand at the horse, and it rose high into the air. The crowd was still more thrilled and amazed, and they roared their appreciation of their magical king. "And now," said the king, looking all around for an idea, and the captain of his brigade of witch hunters ran forwards. "Your Majesty," said the captain, "this very morning, Saber died of eating a poisonous toadstool. Bring him back to life, Your Majesty, with your wand." And the captain heaved on to the stage the lifeless body of the largest of the witch-hunting hounds. Oh. Uh-oh. The foolish king brandished his twig and pointed it at the dead dog, but inside the bush, Babbitty smiled and did not trouble to lift her wand, for no magic can raise the dead. When the dog did not stir, the crowd began first to whisper and then to laugh. They suspected that the king's first two feats had been mere tricks after all. Why didn't it work? The king screamed at the charlatan, who bethought himself the only ruse left to him. "There, Your Majesty, there," he shouted, pointing at the bush where Babbitty sat concealed. "I see her playing a wicked witch who is blocking your magic with her own evil spells. Seize her, somebody, seize her!" Babbitty fled from the bush, and the brigade of witch hunters set off in pursuit, unleashing their hounds, who bayed for Babbitty's blood. But as she reached a low hedge, the little witch vanished from sight. And when the king, the charlatan, and all the courtiers gained the other side, they found the pack of witch-hunting hounds barking and scrabbling around a bent and aged tree. "She has turned herself into a tree," screamed the charlatan, and dreading lest Babbitty turn back into a woman and denounce him, he added, "Cut her down, Your Majesty, that is the way to treat evil witches." An axe was brought at once, and the old tree was felled to loud cheers from the courtiers and the charlatan. However, As they were making ready to return to the palace, the sound of loud cackling stopped them in their tracks. "Fools!" cried Babbitty's voice from the stump they had left behind. "No witch or wizard can be killed by being cut in half. Take the axe if you do not believe me, and cut the grand sorcerer in two." Uh-oh. So this is the grand sorcerer. This is the captain. Oh my. And that's the king. And this is the cackling stump and the tree. Oh, and his audience. Wow, they've got some serious hats. The captain of the brigade of witch hunters was eager to make the experiment, but as he raised the axe, the charlatan fell to his knees, screaming for mercy and confessing all his wickedness. As he was dragged away to the dungeons, the tree stump cackled more loudly than ever. "By cutting a witch in half, you have unleashed a dreadful curse upon your kingdom," it told the petrified king. "Henceforth, every stroke of harm that you inflict upon my fellow witches and wizards will feel like an axe stroke in your own side until you wish you could die of it." At that, the king fell to his knees too and told the stump that he would issue a proclamation at once protecting all the witches and wizards of the kingdom and allowing them to practice their magic in peace. "Very good," said the stump, "but you have not yet made amends to Babbitty." Anything at all," cried the foolish king, wringing his hands before the stump. "You will erect a statue of Babbitty upon me, in memory of your poor washerwoman, and to remind you forever of your own foolishness," said the stump. The king agreed to it at once, and promised to engage the foremost sculptor in the land, and have the statue made of pure gold. Then the shamed king and all the noblemen and women returned to the palace, leaving the tree stump cackling behind them. Oh, so this is him defeated. I wonder what the plan of the charlatan was after he was apparently going to kill Babbitty, because then she wouldn't be blocking his magic anymore, right? So he would still probably have died. So here's his hounds. Here's the hat people. He's got one heck of a hat too. Wow. Okay. And the cackling stump. Oh no. When the grounds were deserted once more, there wriggled from a hole between the roots of the tree stump a stout and whiskery old rabbit with a wand clamped between her teeth. Babbitty hopped out of the grounds and far away, and ever after a golden statue of the washerwoman stood upon the tree stump, and no witch or wizard was ever persecuted in the kingdom again. So this is Babbitty. She's an animagus, obviously. Same eyes. And there's the stump. What a great story. Albus Dumbledore on Babbitty Rabbitty and Her Cackling Stump. The story of Babbitty Rabbitty and Her Cackling Stump is, in many ways, the most real of Beedle's tales, in that the magic described in this story conforms almost entirely to known magical laws. It was through this story that many of us first discovered that magic could not bring back the dead, and a great disappointment and shock it was, convinced as we had been as young children that our parents would be able to awaken our dead rats and cats with one wave of their wands. Though some 6 centuries have elapsed since Beedle wrote this tale, oh my goodness, 6 centuries, and while we have devised innumerable ways of maintaining the illusion of our loved ones' continuing presence, wizards still have not found a way of reuniting body and soul once death has occurred. Wizarding photographs and portraits move, and in the case of the latter, talk just like their subjects. Other rare objects, such as the Mirror of Eriside, may also reveal more than a static image of a lost loved one. Ghosts are transparent, moving, talking, and thinking versions of wizards and witches who wished, for whatever reason, to remain on Earth. So this is the king with his crazy, impressive mustache and hat. And then these are his hounds. Again, remind me of Sirius Black. And these are obviously his guards, not as impressive mustaches. Oh, and these are the kids with the dead rat. So sad. Bertrand de Pensis Profondes. As the eminent wizarding philosopher Bertrand de Pensis Profondes writes in his celebrated work, A Study into the Possibility of Reversing the Actual and Metaphysical Effects of Natural Death, with particular regard to the reintegration of essence and matter. Give it up, it's never going to happen. That's hilarious. And he obviously was confined to a bed. That's so funny. Look at his little goatee here. The tale of Babbitty Rabbitty does, however, give us one of the earliest literary mentions of an animagus. For Babbitty, the washerwoman is possessed of the rare magical ability to transform into an animal at will. Animagi make up a small fraction of the wizarding population. Achieving perfect, spontaneous human-to-animal transformation requires much study and practice, and many witches and wizards consider that their time might be better employed in other ways. Certainly, the application of such talent is limited unless one has had a great need of disguise or concealment. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Magic has insisted upon a register of animagi, for there can be no doubt that this kind of magic is of greatest use to those engaged in surreptitious, covert, or even criminal activity. Professor McGonagall, headmistress of Hogwarts, has asked me to make it clear that she became an animagus. Asked me to make it clear. That's cute. Merely as a result of her extensive researches into all fields of transfiguration, and that she has never used the ability to turn into a tabby cat for any surreptitious purpose, setting aside legitimate business on behalf of the Order of the Phoenix, where secrecy and concealment were imperative. Of course, she would do that. She would ask Dumbledore to clarify that. So these are animagi, and this is Babbitty turning into a bunny. That's so funny. Wonder what I would turn into. Have you ever wondered that? I'd like to think it would be something cool. This is Professor McGonagall. Very serious, stern woman. Looks exactly like the book describes her. I'm not sure why Dumbledore's Phoenix is here. This is Fox, I think. And this is the tabby cat that she turns into. Although I did note that the book had mentioned that the spectacles, her spectacles, which are her glasses, were in the shape of the stripes on the cat, and it's not matching up for me. I feel like they could have done a little bit better of a job at making the stripes a little bit more authentic on the cat, but really great illustration. Regardless, it's amazing. Whether there was ever a washerwoman who was able to transform into a rabbit is open to doubt. However, some magical historians have suggested that Beedle modeled Babbitty on the famous French sorceress Lisette de Lapin, who was convinced of witchcraft in Paris in 1422. Who was convicted of witchcraft in Paris in 1422. To the astonishment of her Muggle guards, who were later tried for helping the witch to escape, Lisette vanished from her prison cell the night before she was due to be executed. Although it has never been proven that Lisette was an animagus who managed to squeeze through the bars of her cell window, a large white rabbit was subsequently seen crossing the English Channel in a cauldron with a sail fitted to it, and a similar rabbit later became a trusted advisor at the court of King Henry V. I think that's fifth. Well, obviously it was her. I don't think we regularly see bunnies in a gold cauldron with a sail. So this was her caught. She's so pretty. And this is, I think that's King Henry V. I haven't brushed up on my Roman numerals lately. This may have contributed to that Muggle king's reputation for mental instability. I feel like it was King Henry V. Maybe the 6th? It's V. It's V5. I feel like that might be Henry VI. The king in Beedle's story is a foolish Muggle who both covets and fears magic. He believes that he can become a wizard simply by learning incantations and waving a wand. Footnote reads, As intensive studies in the Department of Mysteries demonstrated as far back as 1672, wizards and witches are born, not created. While the rogue ability to perform magic sometimes appears in those of apparent non-magical descent, though several later studies have suggested that there will have been a witch or wizard somewhere on the family tree, Muggles cannot perform magic. The best or worst they could hope for are random and uncontrollable effects generated by a genuine magical wand, which, as an instrument through which magic is supposed to be channeled, sometimes holds residual power that it may discharge at odd moments. See also the notes on wand lore for The Tale of the Three Brothers. He is completely ignorant of the true nature of magic and wizards, and therefore swallows the preposterous suggestions of both the charlatan and Babbitty. This is certainly typical of a particular type of Muggle thinking. In their ignorance, they are prepared to accept all sorts of impossibilities about magic, including the proposition that Babbitty has turned herself into a tree that can still think and talk. It is worth noting at this point, however, that while Beedle uses the talking tree device to show us how ignorant the Muggle King is, he also asks us to believe that Babbitty can talk while she is a rabbit. Oh yeah, they don't talk when they're animagi. This might be poetic license, but I think it more likely that Beedle had only heard about animagi and never met one, for this is the only liberty that he takes with magical laws in the story. Animagi do not retain the power of human speech while in their animal form, although they keep all their human thinking and reasoning powers. This, as every schoolchild knows, is the fundamental difference between being an animagus and transfiguring oneself into an animal. Oh, interesting. In the case of the latter, one would become the animal entirely, with the consequence that one would know no magic, be unaware that one had ever been a wizard, and would need somebody else to transfigure one back to one's original form. Oh, okay. So if you transfigure yourself into a frog, you're a frog. There's no human consciousness happening. But if you are an animagus frog, you still have a human mind. Interesting. I did not know that. I think it possible that in choosing to make his heroine pretend to turn into a tree and threaten the king with pain like an axe stroke in his own side, Beedle was inspired by real magical traditions and practices. Trees with wand-quality wood have always been fiercely protected by the wand makers who tend them, and cutting down such trees to steal them risks incurring not only the malice of the bowtruckles, usually nesting there, but also the ill effect of any protective curses placed around them by their owners. Footnote reads, for a full description of these curious little tree dwellers, see Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I believe the bowtruckle was in Newt Scamander's pocket in the movies Fantastic Beasts. I don't know if that's in the book. I haven't read the book, but we will get to that. So this is the Cruciatus Curse, and he's obviously the wand maker protecting the tree. Okay. In Beedle's time, the Cruciatus Curse had not yet been made illegal by the Ministry of Magic, and could have produced precisely the sensation with which Babbitty threatens the king. Footnote reads, the Cruciatus, Imperius, and Abracadabra curses were first classified as unforgivable in 1717, with the strictest penalties attached to their use. The Abracadabra and the Imperius. This is the one where they get possessed, and then this is the killing curse. Wow, this is a beautiful picture of bowtruckle. Okay, so this definitely is the creature that was in Newt Scamander's pocket. Oh wow, so this is his legs. And these are its arms. It kind of looks like that twig bug thing that I don't even know what it's called. A stick bug, maybe? I think that's actually what it's called. That's so cool. Wow.